This is going to last about an hour. And I'll also be posting the video up on YouTube once I'm done. Okay. Let's see. I haven't run a screencast in a while, so I'm a little slow on switching my screens back and forth. Let me put my webcam on for a second. So welcome everybody, first of all. I know probably a bunch of you saw this Android programming thread on Reddit yesterday, so welcome. Okay, let me try to fix the mic first before I start talking then. Let's see, audio setup. Okay, that's loud. Here we go. Does that sound better? I'm in the yellow zone. Or here. Sounding any better? Alright. I'm going to start, and if it's still too quiet, keep saying that in the chat, and I will adjust the volume even higher. Okay, awesome. So, some of you are long-term listeners. I've done, I think, 5 or 6 episodes in the past on desktop Java programming. So those are all on the archive page on my website, so you can go check those out if you want to do some other Java programming. Today we're going to do a Android smartphone project, the first one on Build Something Awesome. We're going to do a little game based on like the Scorched Earth type game, or somebody told me the original game is called Artillery. So we're going to do a game for that. I have my little, this is like the Nexus 1 or something that I got at a Google developer conference a few years ago. My current phone unfortunately wasn't working this morning because I have a custom ROM on it and it was giving me problems. So I've got my old little phone today. And if you don't have an Android phone, or even if you do, I'm going to show how to start the Android emulator that you can download for free as well, so you can develop and test on the emulator. Although if you have a real phone, you'll find that it's generally faster to test on your real phone rather than on the emulator. Okay, hopefully this stream will be stable. I'm trying to watch the upload rate and see if it drops. If there are a lot of stream problems, it might be something with my internet. And if that's the case, I'm still recording this, so I will post the YouTube video in the worst case, but hopefully the stream will work smoothly. So, let's go ahead and get started, and I will switch over to my desktop. So the first thing that we need is a couple tools. There's 2 downloads that we need to do Android development. The first, specific to Android, you need to go to developer.android.com and download the Android SDK. It's here's the page. You go to this button in the middle, get the SDK, and then there will be a big blue button. Hopefully it'll say your platform, either Windows, Mac, or Linux, and click this. It's about a 400 megabyte download, and I've already downloaded it to my folder, and I'm not going to click download now, says it might mess up my stream. So if you don't have that, you need to download that, and it'll be a zip file. You just need to unzip it to a folder, and I have mine here in the downloads folder, and it'll have this Eclipse and SDK folders inside it. So you'll need that. The other thing you need is a Java editor. I am going to be showing how to use IntelliJ, which is the one I use at work for Android projects and for other Java projects as well. That's at JetBrains.com, which is the company that makes it. It's also free to download. see, products, IntelliJ, and download. They have a paid version, but it's got some features that we will not need for an intro programming course. So the community edition here is free. You can click download. The current version is 12.0.1. So if you've watched my previous episodes, you probably have version 11. So you might want to come and download this again. Otherwise, icons and menus and things will look a little bit different. I believe they have a Linux version as well. So Windows, Mac, and Linux are all supported by both of these tools. One thing I also need to note is if you are on Windows, you won't have the Java SDK installed, which you'll also need. And I will have to post the link for that. Let's see, JDK Windows. And you might want to follow these instructions or do the download here. So you'll need this thing called JDK, and you'll need to download and install that only if you're on Windows. If you have a Mac, it's already pre-installed. If you're on Linux, it probably will be installed, or you can just search for a Java JDK package in your package manager in Linux. Okay, so I am going to start up IntelliJ 12, and I have my Android SDK downloaded in this folder on my desktop. And I think I'm just going to get a simple Android project up and running on my phone first, and then I'll talk about the game that we're going to make today. So the first step, which is unfortunate, but you have to do this to set up your SDKs the first time you run IntelliJ. So in IntelliJ 12, it looks like this. If you're still using IntelliJ 11, use command semicolon to get to the window that I'm going to go to in a second. So in IntelliJ 12, you go to Configure and Project Defaults, Project Structure, and your window will look like this. It says no SDK, so we need to go to this SDKs tab and hit plus and add first the Java development kit, which if you're on a Mac, it'll find the right folder automatically. Just hit choose. If you're on Windows, you're going to have to, in this Finder window, go to Program Files / Java and find the folder called JDK. But on Mac, it'll find automatically. Just hit choose, and it'll add the Java SDK. Then we've got to go to add again and add an Android SDK. And here I need to navigate to the place I downloaded the Android SDK to. So I had that in my downloads folder with a bunch of junk. Here is ADT Bundle Mac, which is the name of the download. And then select SDK and hit choose. And it's going to give me some options depending on what you have installed. But you should see something here, and you should have Android 4.2 if you just downloaded this from developer.android.com. And hit OK, and now you've got the two SDKs installed. So that was a lot of steps. I'm going to be filing some bugs against IntelliJ to hopefully make this initial process easier. But for now, that's what you've got to do. And then we'll come back to the quick start and create our new project. And it's going to be an Android application. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this, my game is going to be Scorched Pocket, since it fits in your pocket on your phone. Next, and then this stuff you can all leave as it is. Target device, if you can select your USB device if you have it. but I like to hit this show chooser so it'll ask me every time I run if I want to run it on my real phone or if I want to run it in the emulator. So let's finish that up. And it'll take a second to create the project. Thinks there's an error, but hopefully that'll go away. Tip of the day. To navigate to the declaration of a class, method, or variable, use somewhere in the code, position the caret, and press Command B. Okay, nice keyboard shortcut. So it looks like some people are still downloading some of the SDK stuff. So unfortunately, that is one of the problems with the Android SDK. It's a big download. I will try to slow down a little bit, but I do want to try to keep this to under an hour for everybody. So if you aren't able to catch up, I will be posting this whole video onto YouTube later this afternoon. So if for some reason you aren't able to keep up because of your download speeds, I'll have it all online later as well. And yes, the SDK just needs to be unzipped, and then like I was just showing, you've got to tell IntelliJ where to find it. Okay, so here's our new project. This is how, or actually I think IntelliJ had it like this when it was created. And we need to open this new project up, go into this folder called source, which you'll probably remember from normal Java projects is where all of our Java files go. And our project template has this my activity in it, which looks like this. So the first thing I want to do is get this running on my phone. So hopefully that will be easy to just click this play button. And waiting for ADB, it's trying to find the devices that I have. And actually it already ran. Oh, no, there it is. Okay. So, this is supposed to be showing my phone here, but it's not. So, let me switch over to my phone. There's one thing you have to do on your phone first before you can use it for development. Oh, I think my camera's backwards over here. Alright, I'll try to show it upside down. So, actually let me flip this camera around. Okay, there we go. So, here's my Android phone. We need to turn on, and actually I already have it turned on here, but let me just demonstrate it. We've got to go to Settings, and let's see, find the Settings app here. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the settings, oh, this is an older version. So on newer phones, you've got to scroll down to the bottom of settings, and there'll be a menu item called Developer Options, and go into that. Actually, I can show that on my Nexus. Okay, so here's my current phone. If you go into settings, let me tilt this back a little. If you go all the way down to the bottom, there's one called Developer Options. And on this screen, there's a little switch at the top that you can turn on and off. You've got to turn that on. And then there's another section here that says debugging, and there's an item called Android debugging. You've got to turn that on also. So I'm going to do that on my little phone. On an older phone that's, I think this is a Froyo phone, or maybe Gingerbread. It's under Applications. So in Settings, go to Applications, which is kind of in the middle. And you've got to turn on Unknown Sources to allow non-market apps. And you've got to go to Development at the bottom of that list and turn on USB debugging. And I like to turn on Stay Awake also, so the phone doesn't go to sleep while it's plugged into my computer. So those two settings. And now if I come back to IntelliJ now, hopefully it will show me my phone when I try to run it. Sometimes there's some instability with Android phones, and you've got to... Oh, yeah, I think the volume went down because my other webcam was farther from the mic. Okay, so let's try running this again. And okay, there, it shows my phone. Just has an ID number. But you'll notice it says it's not compatible. And that's because my phone is an older phone. It's not running Android 4.2. But we can fix that since we don't need any Android 4.2 features. So I'm going to hit cancel here first. Cancel. And we need to go to this Android manifest file in our project. And there is, oh, it didn't actually add the line this time. So we need to go here before the application line and after this manifest section. So in here, we've got to add a new line, which is open angle bracket uses dash SDK Android colon min SDK version equals, and 8 is probably what you want. I'll tell you what these numbers mean in just a second. And then you also want to say Android target SDK version equals that same number, and then at the end a slash and a closing bracket. So what that number is it basically tells you what Android version. If you search for Android API level, you can find this list of numbers. But basically 8, which I'm using, corresponds to Android Froyo, which is probably the earliest you'll have on your phone. So it's probably safe to just use 8. If you have a really old phone, you might have 1.6 and you'll have to put 4 there. If you only care about new phones, you can leave it at a higher number. But anyway, if you put 8, you'll probably be safe. If not, you can try some other numbers and find the one that works for your phone. So now that our project here supports my old phone, I can run it, and now it says yes, it's compatible. I can hit OK, and let's switch over. We should see the app starting up in a short bit of time. And there it is. You can see it says, well, my webcam's not focusing that close, but it says My Activity, Hello World. That's about it. We're going to put our own game there in a second. Let me show you real quick, for those without phones, how to start an Android emulator, and then we'll go into making the game. We should have plenty of time to get some graphics and animation and touch stuff up before the end of the hour. Alright, back to my desktop. Whoops. Switch to nothing. There, back to my desktop. Okay, So we'll minimize IntelliJ for a moment, and we are going to create an Android emulator that will run on our computer. So here's the download folder of the Android SDK that I downloaded and unzipped earlier. If I go into SDK, and then if I go into Tools, there's a program called Android. So I'm going to run that. And this will bring up the Android SDK Manager. And this thing you can use to download old SDKs if you want. If you're getting advanced into Android development, there's other APIs you can use to integrate with like billing and analytics and advertising and all that stuff. So you can download other components for your SDK through this program. But what we care about right now is in the Tools menu, Manage AVDs, which is Android Virtual Devices, which are basically emulators. And here's a screen. You can see we don't have any right now. I'm going to hit New, and I can give it a name. My Phone Emulator. Or any name you want. You can create a bunch of these with different configurations. And then in this drop down you can choose what kind of phone you want it to be. Be careful though, if you choose Nexus 7 or Galaxy Nexus, these are going to be big on your computer monitor. They might not fit on your whole screen. So I'm going to pick the Nexus 1. That's actually the phone that I have here for real. So I'm going to have a Nexus 1 emulator. Let's call it that. Nexus 1 emulator. Oh, it doesn't want me to put spaces in there. Alright, target. There's only one target. That's fine. And all this stuff you can fiddle with, but it doesn't really matter for today. I'll just hit OK. And it tells me all this extra data that it put in there. And here it is. And I'm going to start it right now because, especially the first time, and especially while I'm encoding a stream, it's going to take maybe 3 or 4 minutes for the emulator to start up. It's much slower than a real phone. So I'm just going to hit start now and launch. And it'll start up in a window. So, and here it is. It'll take a while to boot up. So, while that's booting up, I am going to show the game that we're going to be building today. So, I have some images in Finder. Here we go, build something awesome. So what I like to do before I start a game is to draw out an image of it first so I can get a sense of where everything's going to go, what images I'm going to be using, and kind of get everything set in advance before I start working, because it starts to get really frustrating if you're just writing code and trying to guess at numbers and positioning and you don't really have an outline of what you're trying to make. So I always like to make a mock-up of my program first. Where's my cursor? And let me just check. Okay, it looks like the video stream is doing all right. It's kind of flickering in and out. Okay, so this is a program called GIMP, which is a free download. It's an open source image editor. So if you have Photoshop or something like that, you can use that as well. But I'm used to using GIMP. I've been using it for a long time, and it's free to download. Also for Windows, Mac, and Linux. It works on all three. So here is the mock-up that I made the other day. And these images are, except for the background, the sand dune that I drew All the other images in here are from a website called openclipart.com, which I've used on this livecast before. I'll put the links to the actual images that I used later on, or when I post the video. So I've got some tanks, little Molotov cocktail explosions, a nuclear explosion that I'm going to use at the end of the game. Yeah, there's also a bunch of free image resources all over the place. I think, yeah, there's even a Reddit where designers will post images for free that they design that they want to see used in games. So there's lots of cool resources you can use to find images, or draw your own, or take pictures and make images out of pictures. So it's pretty simple. We've got a background image, we've got a tank on the left, a tank on the right, the ammunition that's being launched, and an explosion image, maybe some alternate explosion images. And I'm going to use that basically as the wireframe of what we're doing. So, switching off of GIMP. Here are the actual images. I went ahead and shrunk them down to the right size already, because when you get them from openclipart.org, you can get huge sizes like this. It fills my whole screen. Alright, so let's get started in writing our game. You can see here my emulator is still booting up. Hopefully it'll be up before the end of the show. But in the meantime, I will be using my real phone since it's much faster. So, where did IntelliJ go? Here we go. Alright, I'm going to close this run panel. And we're done with the manifest file. So, my activity. In Android, all of the screens of applications are called activities. We're going to have a single activity in this application, and this, just like in some of our previous episodes, is pretty much going to be boilerplate code. You can play around a little bit and see what some of this does on your own, but I'll just type these lines out and sort of explain what they do. But basically, if you're going to write a game, an experiment, you're going to want to do these things. So the first is request window feature, window.feature no title, which is going to hide the title bar that's automatically put there for your game, which we don't really want. Then for this game, which you might not want in your own game, set requested orientation activity info dot screen orientation landscape, because mine is a landscape orientation game. So if you want a portrait game, you don't want to put that, or you could put screen orientation portrait, and then it'll stay vertical. And finally, get window dot set excuse me get window dot set flags window manager dot layout params dot flag full screen. And you actually have to put this twice. This is kind of an ugly API. So we put that once, comma, second time. And that is going to make our app full screen, meaning it's going to hide the status bar. So you may or may not want that. And finally, set content view. This tells Android what the activity is going to show in the window. So right now it's just showing layout main, which is just an empty screen that says hello world. Instead, this is where we're going to start our program. I'm going to say new Scorched Pocket game, and I'm going to type Alt Enter to get this help quick fix menu, and hit create class, hit OK, and that's going to make a second Java file here, which is where we're going to put all of the drawing code for our game. So we're pretty much done with my activity. We just use it to set up some window configuration and then tell it what to put in the window. And then what we're putting in the window is this new game. We've got one thing to fix here. It says there's no default constructor, which is kind of a quirk in Android. So I've got to hit Alt Enter, say create constructor matching super, and the one you can select all of these if you want, but the first one is the one that matters. And there we have it. If we ran this now, we'd just see a black screen. So let's add the drawing first so we can see some color when I run this on the screen. So if you remember on the desktop Java programs that I've done in previous episodes, we're basically going to follow the same pattern as that, with the exception that all of the commands and the methods that we use there are going to have slightly different names in Android. And there will be a few slight differences in how we use them, but for the most part, we're going to use the same patterns. So I'm going to use Command O, or let me right click on here, or sorry, not right click, this one's in the menu. I usually use the Command O shortcut key, but this is also in the menu under Code, Override Methods. And there's one in here called onDraw. And if you just type onDraw, it'll jump to it in the list. And hit enter. And we can actually delete the super here. And in here, this is just like in my previous episodes where we had the paint component with a graphics object. In Android instead, we have onDraw, and there's a canvas object that we can use to draw things. So let's fill the screen with some color. One weird thing in Android is we have these paint objects that let us define colors. So I'm going to make one of those by saying paint red paint equals new paint, and it's complaining it doesn't know what paint is, so I'm going to go over here and hit Alt Enter on paint, and it figured it out. It found up here that the paint I want is Android Graphics Paint, so that's good. Error's gone. So red paint is in existence now, and I'm going to say red paint.setColor color.red, and that'll create a color that we can use for drawing, which again, this is a little quirky in Android. It's a little different from the previous episodes of desktop Java programming. So now that we've got the color, we can say canvas dot draw circle, and you can see it's helping me out. It wants CX, that's the X position of the center of the circle, and CY, and then the radius, and then the paint that it's going to use to draw. So I'm just going to put 100, 100, 50, and type red paint. So this will draw a red circle. Let's try running it on my phone, and hopefully we will see this. Nope, we won't, because it's telling me there's a compile error. And, oh, that's the one thing I forgot in my activity. We weren't quite done with this. On this line where we set content view, new Scorched Pocket game, or whatever your game is called, we've got to put this in here. And this is just kind of a quirk of Android. I'll explain more about that in future episodes. But we just need it. Now I should be able to run. And you can see this progress bar in the bottom where it's building things, it's making the APK. Okay, here it is. It's giving me a choice now between my real phone and the emulator, which apparently is running. Let's check on it. Oh, nope, it's still booting up. Okay, I'm just going to close this so my computer will run faster, but if you're using the emulator, just know that it's going to take several minutes for it to start up. It's probably taking longer here because I'm trying to stream at the same time. Okay, so I am going to pick my phone and switch the camera over to the phone, and it should start up in a moment. Okay, there it is with the red circle. So we've got our graphics up, and at this point, if you play around and look at Canvas a bit, you can see some of the different stuff we're going to draw. Let me take a quick look in the chat room before I go on and actually put our game graphics in. Let's see. Looks like some people are still having a slow time downloading stuff and setting things up in the beginning. So hopefully either you can catch up, some people in the chat can help, or after the end of the episode, I'll be on for a few more minutes to help with any trouble you're having at the moment. And you can also feel free to email me and review the full video when I post it up later this afternoon. Okay, cool. Looks like there's a lot of people helping out in the chat room this week, which is awesome. So, I will keep going. Hopefully there aren't too many people that are lagging behind. If it says... if there's an Android... if it says there's a resource directory error for Scorched Earth, I thought I saw that error too when I made my project. I think IntelliJ was just slow in creating that. So I think just ignore that and see if you have problems later if it says the resource directory is missing. I think it'll create that automatically once it gets to it. And yes, there is an Android simulator or emulator for Windows. Should work the same way as I showed here. You can go to your SDK download and go into Tools and run a program called Android, and it should look the same on Windows as on the Mac. You'll have this Android manager, go to Tools, Manage AVDs, and you can create and start emulators, the same on Windows as I'm doing on Mac here. Let's see. Any other questions right now? Okay, so let's go back to our game. So, here's our game as we have it now. It's just drawing a circle. So, let's start putting in our graphics. So you can go ahead and use circles and rectangles and lines and colors and all that stuff. if you've watched the previous Java Swing videos, it's basically the same thing. You're just going to use canvas.draw whatever, and you can see even when you start typing, it gives you a choice of all the different things you can draw. But I'll let you guys play around with that on your own. Today we're basically just going to be drawing images. So let's start with doing that. Oh, and actually one thing I realized is this phone is a different size. Actually, I need to talk about that real quick too. So, one thing about Android phones is they've all got different screen sizes. So, you're going to have to figure out what the screen resolution of your phone is. Oh, whoops, I'm still showing the video camera. Back to the desktop. So here I'm going to put some code in to draw, or to tell us what size my screen is, so I can figure out how big my images need to be. So I'm going to get rid of my draw circle. Instead, I'm going to say canvas.draw text, and I'm going to say width, and then our game already has a get width that we can find out just by calling this get width method. And then I need an X and a Y. I'll put 100, 100, and a paint. I'll use my red paint. So this will print out on the screen how wide in pixels the screen is. Let me also set the text size here. Red paint dot set text size 20. And let me also add, while I'm here, the height. And this should go farther down, 150. Alright, let's run this on my phone so we can find out what the screen size is, so we'll know how big our images should be. And yes, coordinates are always going to be X first and then Y. Okay, and I don't know if you can read that. It says width 480, height 320. So that's much smaller than the phone I was using when I made this demo, so all my images actually are going to be the wrong size. So I guess I'm going to be showing you guys how to resize images today. The first one is this map1 PNG. Let me open it up in preview. And you can see this was huge on my other phone, on my Galaxy Nexus. It's got way bigger resolution than this little phone. Oh, whoops, let me switch back to my desktop again. Looks like there's a couple questions in the chat. Let me just finish putting this background image in, and then I'll come back and answer those. So here we've got my image. Let me adjust the size, and I want this to be 480. Oh, come on there. 480 by 320 for my little phone. Okay, and I will save that. Okay, so the first thing I've got to do is get my image over into my project, and this goes into this res folder in Android, and it also needs to go into the right one of these folders that has DPI in it. So this is another big quirk of Android. Let me see if I can print this out too. Canva, actually, we can get around this for now if we just make a new folder in here called Drawable, and we'll use that for now. I'll explain all about this DPI stuff in a later episode, but that would take a little bit of time at the moment. We can get by without it. So I'm going to take my map image and drag it. I'm going to hold Option on Mac so I can copy it over into this folder. And now it's in my project. So we've got to do two things, just like we did in Swing Java projects. We've got to load the image, and then we've got to display it on the screen. So first we need to load it. We do that very similar to previous episodes, where we make a variable and we load the image into that variable, and then we can use it to draw. The difference is in Android, these are called bitmaps instead of images. So I'm going to make a bitmap, background image, and oh yep, I got to use Alt-Enter on bitmap so I can find it. And then in this method here, in Scorched Pocket Game, I'll say background image equals, and then this is a little bit of boilerplate again for loading images in Android. Bitmap factory dot decode resource, get resources, comma, r dot drawable, and then you should see the list of images you've added to your project. So mine was called map1. And this will load that image into this variable where we can use it in drawing. So let's go ahead and draw it down here then. Canvas.draw bitmap, background image, comma, 0, comma, 0. And you don't actually need a paint for drawing bitmaps. I'm just going to say no. So that should get the background image up. Let me run it on the phone, and then I'll check in on the chat room again. And grab a drink of water. So here it is running on my phone. It's got the background image. If you can see, I guess there's a lot of reflection. Okay, let me check on the chat room. Let's see. Yep, Java DLL. Yeah, you have to make sure you point to the JDK. Let's see. It looks like that worked out. Let's see. If that didn't work for you, polite internet user, then I can help you out again at the end of the episode. Oh, a little bit about the context. So this context thing is basically something Android uses to keep track of information about the screen. Basically, activities, which are, like I said, activities are basically windows for applications. Each activity is actually a context, and contexts kind of tell your code where they can load resources from, what size the screen is, all that sort of stuff is kind of stored in the context. So whenever you've got a view in Android, which is something that appears on the screen, you've got to pass one of these context objects. Okay, well, let's see. Seems like there's a big amount of lag, like almost 3 minutes of lag for some of the people in the chat room. So if there are more questions, just keep typing them in. I'll try to check in once in a while. So let's see how much more of this we can get done before the end of today. Let's start by putting some more images in. And I have to start by shrinking some of these images down because I made these images for my other phone, which is a lot bigger. So let me shrink this one by about 50%. Okay. Save him. Oh, thank you for reminding me. I keep forgetting to switch off of my webcam. Here's the other tank. I need something that'll like automatically switch when there's motion on the other video source. Okay, there's tank 2. The ammo's already kind of small. I think I'll leave it as it is. And maybe I'll leave the explosion as it is too for now. Okay, so I've got these other images. I'm just going to drag all of these images over into my project in the drawable folder. And I'm going to load these. So I'm going to make bitmap tank 1 image, bitmap tank 2 image, bitmap ammo image, and I'll just let's make the explosion, bitmap explosion image, and then I'm going to load all these in the constructor method here. Tank 1 image equals, let me just copy, well, I'll type it the first time, bitmap factory dot decode resource get resources comma r dot drawable dot tank 1, and I'll copy this for tank 2. For ammo image, this one is ammo 1, and finally the explosion image equals bitmap factory dot decode resource get resources comma r dot drawable dot explosion. Okay, I've got them all loaded. Let's draw them on the screen. I'm going to get rid of this width and height stuff now that I know the correct size. And canvas.draw bitmap tank 1. Oh, tank 1 image. And then I need to know the X and Y coordinates where I want to draw it. So these are going to be the XY coordinates of the top left corner of the image. So let me switch to GIMP and figure out where I want this to be. And first, this mock-up was for my big phone, but for the little phone, let me resize this whole thing down to 480 by 320, forget the code for going to full size. Zoom there. Okay. So the top left corner of this tank looks like it's 11 by 226. Okay, let me put that in. 11, 226. And then I'm going to draw the second tank. Draw bitmap tank 2 image. And he is at 404 by 268. 404, 268. And let's draw the ammo just for now, even though it won't be moving. Canvas.draw bitmap ammo image. And here in the picture it's at 85 by 203. 85, 203. And I guess I'll draw the explosion image too for now. Canvas.draw bitmap explosion image. Oh, this tooltip is going crazy. Explosion image is at here. The top left corner is about 155, 164. 155, 164. Okay, let me run that on my phone and see how it looks. And I realized maybe I can fix the brightness setting on this phone so you can see it better. Alright, let me switch to my webcam, and I guess it's kind of blurry because this webcam is not focusing close very well, but I've got my tanks, I've got my explosion, my Molotov cocktail, everything's on there. So, I think I'm ready to show some animation, and I think I can get some touch stuff in the next 10 minutes, so I will just push this a little bit longer. We're running a little over. And let's see, this time I will remember to switch back to my desktop. Alright, so for animation, we're going to use basically the same pattern I've used in previous episodes, but with Android specific stuff. So here's the pattern for it. In previous episodes, you might remember the timer thing we did. In Android, it's very similar, but with slightly different objects. So instead of a timer, in Android, we're going to have a handler. And I've got to use Alt-Enter. We want android.os.handler when you hit Alt-Enter there. And I'll just call him handler, and he will be created as a new handler. Then I'm going to say handler.postDelayed this and 30. So this is just like in Swing when we started a timer. What postDelayed does is every 30 milliseconds it's going to call a method in our code that'll let us update things in our game. There's one problem though. We have to add at the top this implements runnable, which will make our game into something that can receive an update call. And we've got to use Alt-Enter again and say implement methods, and it'll create this method called run. This method called run is what's going to be executed every time the handler fires off a message. Although one other slight difference is that this message, unlike the timer in Swing, the handler is only going to fire this message once. So at the end of our loop, we've got to tell the handler to fire one more time. And actually, to do that, I have to convert this handler. I need to actually declare him up here and say handler. Actually, I can make him right here. So this line that I typed down here needs to move up to here. Okay. And then in our run method, we've got to do the same thing at the end, where we post delayed this, 30. So this will cause it to wait another 30 milliseconds and call run again. Then we'll do whatever code we want and then post this again, so it'll keep looping over and over. So let's make this actually do something. Let's make the X position of the ammunition change over time. So right now we're always drawing it at 85. We want to make this 85, instead of being hard-coded, it needs to be a variable that we can change in our program. So I'm going to select 85 and do Command Option F to make it a field variable, and this is the ammo X position. I'll call it ammo X, and I put it here. I don't want to change it in the draw method. I want ammo X to be 85 from the very beginning. And now, in our animation method here, run, which is going to be executed every 30 milliseconds, in here, I'm going to say ammo X equals the old value of ammo X plus 5. And then, just like in Swing, after we update our variables, we need to tell the screen to redraw itself. So we do that in Android by saying post invalidate, which is a little obscure, but that's what it's called. And let me run this, and hopefully I will switch to the camera in time to see this fly across the screen. Alright, it's compiling the APK. It's loading it to the phone. Oh, and I missed it. It went by too fast. Okay. Oh, somebody saw it? Okay. And a question in the chat room. What post invalidate does technically is it goes through everything on the screen and tells it to update itself if it needs to be updated. So essentially, yes, it causes everything on the screen to be redrawn. And specifically, in our case, everything that's being drawn is being drawn in this onDraw method. So if you put some logging or debugging in there, you would see that after post invalidate, it's not going to call draw right away, but it's going to let this method finish, and then shortly after this method finishes, Android is going to automatically call onDraw again, since it knows everything needs to be refreshed. So anything in here that refers to variables, it'll use the new updated version of the variable. Alright, so we're getting close to the end. I want to show how to read touch events. So I'm going to show that real quick with maybe a silly example, but let's see, not next week. Next week I will be out of town, but the following week I'm going to do a follow-up episode on this, and I'll continue and show some real game logic and some collision detection and gravity simulation. So I will put some more real logic into this game in 2 weeks when I do my next episode. But for today, I'll just show you how to receive touch events. So especially if you've watched previous episodes, you should be able to make some types of games using what I've shown today. So for touch event, I'm going to put my cursor here at the end and go to, again, code override methods. And there's a method called onTouch. Oh, I guess there's a couple called onTouch. The one we want is called onTouch event, but you don't want onFilterTouchEvent for security. I'm going to hit down and go through. The next one, onTouchEvent, that's the one we want. Okay. And here, I guess we can leave this super stuff. It should just be fine. So in here, I am going to put some other code. Let me do two things. First of all, I am just going to update the tank's position, his X and Y position, to be wherever you touch. So this is kind of a silly example, but it'll give you the idea. I'll do some real code for this project next time. So tank 1 is currently hard-coded at 11 by 226. So I'm going to make variables for each of these with Command-Option-F to make a field variable. The first one is tank1x, and I'm going to select from here to initialize it in the field declaration. That means it's going to put the number up here at the top. It's going to start out as 11. And for 226, the same thing, Command-Option-F, tank1y. So that's its position. And here, in my onTouch event, I'm going to say tank1x equals event, which is this thing that's a parameter to the method. So I can say event.getX. And you can see there's an error. It's a Java thing where you've got floats and you've got integers. Integers don't have decimal points. And let's see, actually, I'm going to do this second one. Change tank1x to be a float. Oh, did that not work? Oh, and I need to make it not final with Alt-Enter also. Okay, and then tank1y equals event.getY, and Alt-Enter, make it a float, and make it not final. And finally, I am going to add some code where when I let my finger, pick my finger up and release my finger from the screen, I want to launch the weapon. So for today, it's not going to be very accurate. I'm just going to reset the X position of the ammo and let it continue in its straight line because it's always moving to the right. So when we release our finger, I want it to reset to its original position. So the way I can check whether I'm putting my finger down or releasing it is something called the event action. So I'm going to say if event.getAction, equals action up, then ammo x equals 0, and it'll reset to the left of the screen. So we've got two things that I put in here. Oh yeah, before I forget, we also have to do our post invalidate, so it'll redraw. So I've got, first the tank is going to be repositioned to wherever my finger is, and then when I release my finger, the ammo is going to reset to the left of the screen. So not really accurate game physics, but I'll do more of that next week. I just wanted to kind of show as an example how you can do this, so if you know what kind of logic you want, you can play around with that and do your own. Let's see. So let me run this and see if this works, and then I'll read some questions, but that's about it. I'll be online for another probably 20 minutes or so, so if you're having trouble installing, I will try to help you out. And otherwise, good luck with your own project this week, and I will be back in 2 weeks with a follow-up episode to this one. And there's also previous episodes in the video archive where you can see some other game examples and the types of logic you can do. So you should be able to use some of those Java syntax things in Android as well, as long as you use the drawing commands and the on-touch and the handler stuff that we did today. You can use some of the stuff from previous episodes combined with those things. Okay, so looks like it's running in my phone now. Alright, so there's the ammo flying, and I'm going to touch, and you can see it moved my tank. So there's one problem I did forget about, and this is an Android quirk. I made a little mistake here. In on-touch event, this last line that it made automatically for us, we don't want it to return super blah blah blah. We want to say return true at the end of on-touch event. If you don't do that, then you're not going to get all the events. You're only going to get the down events. So that was just a mistake I made there. So with that fix, let's see. Alright, yeah, there we go. I can move the tank around and it follows my finger. And whenever I release, the Molotov cocktail flies again from the left side of the screen. So not really a game that we got to today, but all the animation and drawing and touch techniques are there, so you can put whatever kind of logic you want. In 2 weeks, I'll be following this up and putting some real logic into this game, so I will hope to see you then. And thanks for tuning in. I have a Facebook page that you can follow, or even better actually is the mailing list on my website, buildsomethingawesome.org. So there's a link on that first section to join the mailing list if you want to be reminded when new episodes are coming out. And there's also an archives page in the navigation bar on there where you can go and see all the previous episodes, and I hope to get this episode posted later this afternoon or evening. And again, feel free to email me if you have any questions, or if you have any cool ideas for future episodes, things you'd like to learn, or if you make your own project and want to share it, I would love to see it. So thanks for tuning in, and I am going to turn off the screen broadcast, but I will be online in the chat room for another 15 minutes. If you have any questions, I will try to help you out. So thanks. See you next time.